Good morning, everybody. It's so good to see all of you. Glad that you're here today. I'm Andy. I'm one of the guys on staff. Would love to meet you. I want to jump right into this message because I think God has got some great things in mind for us today. And so I want to jump in and get right to that. We're in the middle of a series, a 3-week series on relationships. So we started last week, then this week, and then we'll do next week. And we value relationships as a people. This is not a cultural thing. This is not a male-female thing. We all value relationships. Whether you're married or dating, whether you're single or divorced or widowed, relationships are a central part of our life. And there's just no way escaping it. Our work is tied to relationships. Our homes are tied to relationships. Our parenting is tied to relationships. It's just a key part of who we are. Now, next week, we're going to wrap up the series. And the title for next week's message, right before Valentine's Day, is 3 Little Words. But it's not the 3 little words you're thinking it is, so you'll have to wait till next week for that. And last week we talked about the harvest, the idea of you sow the seed, you reap the harvest. You sow the seed, you reap the harvest. How when you plant into a relationship, you plant into your life, you may not notice a change immediately, but over time you're going to see something grow out of that. And last Sunday on the way to the car, we were walking, and my daughter, who's a middle school carer, had this brilliant idea. She said, "So Dad, are you going to let that plant grow, and then every week of this series have it out there and people see how the growth is and all that?" And I said, "That's a great idea. I had never thought of that." The problem is I didn't really plant a plant last week. The problem is I grabbed a pistachio on the way out of my house, and I put a pistachio in the dirt. But you don't know. You're over there, right? And so then in between second and third service, I didn't get in here in time. I was talking to people outside, and so when I got inside the room, they'd already started, so I couldn't even get my pistachio back out. And now I'm scrambling in the back, so I went and grabbed a granola bar out of the snack counter, pulled a peanut out of it, sucked all the goo off of it, and I planted that third service, right? None of that grows, apparently, So that would have been a great idea, Kara. I wish I'd have thought of that the week earlier, but I didn't. So you're going to have to pretend that this is the one I planted last week. It's not, obviously, but you can just pretend that's the one I planted last week, and that'll be fine. So apparently granola bars and pistachios don't make good growth, so you'll just have to go with that one. So what seeds should we plant? If we're saying you plant a seed to reap a harvest in a relationship, what seeds do you plant? Because there's a lot of confusion on this. Hallmark says you should plant the seeds of showering words of affections on the people in your life and write those words down on overpriced cards. That's what Hallmark says. You should do it that way. FTD says you plant seeds by giving the one you love an array of flowers. That's the way you show love to them, especially this time of year when they jack the price up for Valentine's Day. And The Bachelor, of course, says that you should shower love to the ones you love by also dating 15 other people at the same time. It's a great romantic way to do that. It's a great gesture. So what do you plant? What seeds do you put in the ground if you're wanting this to grow in your relationships? The Bible's a little overwhelming. You look at the pages of the Bible, and there's a lot of stuff in here about what to do and how to live and how to respond to people in our life. Even 1 Corinthians 13, which is called the love chapter, there's a lot there. It says love is patient, love is kind, it does not envy, it does not boast, it's not proud, it doesn't dishonor others, it's not self-seeking, it's not easily angered, it keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, it rejoices with the truth, it always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres, love never fails. And I feel like I can't do all of that. If people in my life would do all of those things, if I get my kids to do all those things with me, that'd be awesome. If I get Amy to do all those things all the time, that'd be great. But I feel like I can't do that all the time. I'm not that good. I can do some of it some of the time, and I can strive for all of it, but that's just too much to focus on. I don't know what to do with all of that. Now, in a few minutes, I want to warn you, I'm going to make an outrageous claim. In fact, the title of today's message, I'm not a big title guy, but the title of today's message is an outrageous claim. Because I'm going to make one. I'm going to give you a claim. If you do this, what I'm going to suggest, it's going to make your relationships better. Wherever you try it, it's going to improve a relationship. And for some of you that are in difficult, painful relationships now, if you do what I asked you to do this morning, it's going to make it dramatically better. Now, that's an outrageous claim. Whether you're single or dating, whether you're married, whether you have kids or not, whether you're in difficult relationships at work, I don't care where it is. Wherever you apply this, I'm guaranteeing it will make a change, an improvement, and for some of you, a drastic improvement. But you're going to be skeptical about that. We're skeptical people. That's what we do. We live in a skeptical society. We're constantly bombarded with messages of how to, silver bullet to make your life better. You get commercials on television, commercials on the radio, commercials before movies. You have commercials on your phone, on apps, on social media. You get commercials all the time claiming, if you give us your money, we'll fix this thing. And so it makes it, I just want to cry, fake news of all this stuff. You've heard the old adage, right? If something sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Bunch of cynics. Yeah, of course you've heard the adage. We all believe that, right? If something sounds so crazy to be true, we know it's probably false. So I thought, let me do some serious research, find some other outrageous claims. Thought this might be fun. So apparently Reebok claims that their easy-tone shoes improve posterior shaping by 28%. I'm not even sure what that means exactly, but I'm not even disputing the claim. Let's say 28% is right. My question is, how do they judge that? Like, what does a 26% improvement look like versus 28? Oh, it's clearly not 28, or, man, that's a 30. Like, what does that even mean? I don't even know what that talks about. Nivea got sued, actually, by the federal government for claiming that their white tea silhouette cream will make you thin. The Federal Trade Commission fined them $900,000 for claiming publicly that their cream would make you thin. And I love the chairman's comment during the lawsuit. John Liebowitz said, the real skinny, see what he did there? The real skinny on weight loss is that no cream is going to help you fit in those jeans. If you don't believe my claim, don't turn me into the FTC. I don't have $900,000 to spare, but I thought it was clever. This is my favorite one. Taco Bell's claim the seasoned beef is actually beef. If you've been to Taco Bell, you know that's sketchy. I'm not sure exactly. But they actually got a lawsuit filed on a class action lawsuit by a law firm in Alabama who claimed that their taco meat filling, quote unquote, their taco meat filling was only 35% ground beef. They said the rest of the 65% was, well, they didn't say what it was. Filler, snout, kangaroo, I don't know what exactly it was, but something else besides beef. And Taco Bell, this is my favorite part, Taco Bell in response took out a full-page ad there in Alabama and said, we think our reputation has been sullied. Our beef is 88% USDA inspected, not the 35% being claimed. So they're not saying it's 100% either. They're acknowledging 12% of snout and kangaroo. They're acknowledging that's true, but not 35%. We're 88%, it says. So we're cynical, right? We're cynical. You've heard the lines, you've heard the stories, you've heard the claims, all the silver bullets that are going to make everything better, and you don't believe it anymore. And I understand it. We're a cynical bunch. I had an unusual thing happen third service, and since very likely you weren't in third service, let me just tell you, because you may not have caught it. One of the things about third service is by the time we get to third, I know where we're going, right? Like I spend 15, 18 hours during the week preparing for this. It's an embarrassing amount of time I spend getting ready for Sunday mornings. And then I go over it Saturday night, I go over it Sunday morning, I preach it first hour, preach it second hour. By the time we get to third hour, I know where we're going. This is pretty well, all the kinks are worked out. And so third hour I preached, and at the end of the third hour I'm praying, as I did for the first two, that God would soften our hearts, that people who are angry or who are hurt would have some softening going on, all that. And then, almost without me realizing what was happening, I heard myself praying for those who were cynical. And I didn't do that first hour. I didn't do that second hour. I didn't even think about cynicalness anywhere in the message. I wasn't thinking about that when I prepared it. I wasn't thinking about it in particular. But I'm hearing myself pray for those who are cynical. And then right after I prayed it, and if you're not a spiritual person, you may not even believe this. I'm just honest with you. Right after I said it, I felt this weight, like this heaviness. And I'm convinced it was God. Like I'm feeling the weight of what I just said. Because I know so many people in Spring Hill, in WellSpring, have difficult, whether it's parent-child relationships or people at work or they're dating or marriage, whatever it is, and the idea of cynicalness that this will work. And I almost couldn't talk. Like I got emotional, started crying. I wasn't thinking about anything in particular. And I even said, I don't know who that was for, but wow, I had to stop a second because I couldn't hardly even continue. I'm convinced, I've thought more about that this week, because that doesn't happen to me very often. I thought more about this week. I'm just convinced there's so many of us, probably right here, who are saying, you know what, I don't believe it. I mean, the Bible says all these cool things, but I've had enough life to know that that's not necessarily true, and I don't really believe it. They're in a difficult marriage. They've dated a bunch of losers. They have kids who are rebelling. So the idea that this is going to get substantially better just doesn't make sense to them. They're cynical. And let me say, I know how hard it is to be here. You know? Last week, if you're in a difficult relationship and you came last week, I may have snuck up on you. You didn't know it was coming. But if you're here this week, you probably knew it was happening. You probably knew. I'm walking into this, and you came anyway. And I just want to say thank you for that, because I know how hard it is. I know those moments where you feel like your soul is opened up to the world around you, and people are looking at you. They're not looking at you, but it feels like they are. And I know how hard it is to be in a room like this when we talk about something like this and feel like it's all about you and you're just vulnerable. And so thank you for trying that. Thank you for putting your hope on the line a little bit. You know, this week we had so many reports of life groups that started talking about relationships and marriages and dating and different things, and had these serious conversations where people got real and prayed for each other and helped each other out, and some serious hurts came to the surface because of the message and things. So I know it's causing some unrest among people. And then this morning I was talked to a child who came up to me and said, I'm going to cry again, thank you for helping my mommy and daddy. Because this week's been different. And I just gave it. So I know it's heavy. And I just want to say thank you for opening yourself up. Thank you for letting God do whatever he's going to do in your heart. And I'm going to make an outrageous claim that if you'll do what I'm suggesting today, it'll get better. I just want to put that out there. All right, let's look at 1 Corinthians 13 again. 1 Corinthians 13 says, love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. It does not dishonor others. It's not self-seeking. It's not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love never fails. Now, you may not realize it, but in the Greek language, when they would write a list, order matters. So like if they're sending out a dinner invitation to their guests, and they had some high-end people coming, some famous people or important people, they would list those first on the dinner reservations. You know, this person's coming, this senator or this business leader or this celebrity, they're coming, and they would list the really important people and then down less and less, and it's all prioritized. Like the first things are most important, and they would go down and down and down on the list, down to regular people, and then down at the bottom you'd have like Patriots fans. Like they'd have the whole list right there together as they're laying that out, and they would list that. Now, to be fair, I had somebody, I'm a Colts fan, so after first hour, somebody said, hey, don't be envious about the Patriots. That's pretty good. But it lists all that out, and down the bottom. So when you look at a list like this, you've got to understand they're thinking that way. So what's the most important parts of love? Let's just focus on the first three this morning. Love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. Love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. I was thinking this week, preparing for this morning, of the hundreds of couples, literally hundreds of couples I've counseled with over the years. And I really believe if they would add patience, kindness, and a lack of envy to their homes, they would all improve. 100%. And I really think, I don't have any scientific data, but just kind of in my own head estimating, I think about half of them, this would fix it. A little more patience, a little more kindness, a little less envy. Some of them have been struggling with addictions or affairs. Some have had significant disagreements about money or parenting or sex. I mean, these are difficult situations, a lot of baggage, a lot of pain, a lot of struggle. And yet, I believe a dose of patience, a shot of kindness, a little less envy would fix half of them, get them to a place where they're sustainable, and it would improve 100%. So I thought, let's just do this, make this memorable here. So, be patient. I do this backwards so you can read it the right way. Be patient, be kind, and you guessed it, don't envy. Those are simple things, but my outrageous claim is this will improve every relationship in your life. And it'll fix a lot of them. Be patient, be kind, don't envy. Now, we're obviously not having a real conversation here, you and I. You know, if we were sitting at a coffee shop and going back and forth around your living room or something, we could talk through this thing. But since we're not, let me just give you a couple of words of advice. If you're in a relational struggle, whether that be with your spouse or with your kids or with a coworker or a neighbor, I would encourage you to focus on you. You can't change them. You can't make them be kind or patient or lack of it. You can't do that. You've tried to force them to do things. So don't focus on them. Focus on you. And I want to encourage you to begin to sow into your relationship some patience, some kindness, and pull out some weeds of envy. And you may not harvest love later this afternoon if you do that. You may not harvest love tomorrow or the next day, but if you consistently do this day after day, a little more patience, a little more kindness, a little less envy, a little more patience, a little more kindness, a little less envy. If you do that over time, you're going to begin to see some improvements, some of you drastic improvements, and you're going to know you're growing something healthy and lasting. Now, if you weren't with us last week, let me give you a ground rule for this whole series. If you were here, it's a good reminder. I want you to focus on what you need to change. The prayer of this series is not change him, Lord, or change her, Lord. The prayer of this series is change me, Lord. You can't do the other anyway, so focus on you. And these messages are not designed to be used as weapons. I mean, if I hear any of you quoting me in an argument with your spouse, so help me, I will bring the kindness sign over and whack you in the head with it. Don't do that. This is not what this is for, all right? This is about you and what God wants to do. Let me walk through these things together. Be patient. The word for patience in the Greek is the word makrothumeo. It means long-suffering. Now, question, this is a really important question. If order matters and patience is the first one, why do you think God put patience first? Like of all the things that we think of when we think of relationships or when we think of love, things like beauty or romance or passion or charm, why does God leave off with patience? Because he's smarter than we are. It's pretty simple. At the end of the day, love is patient. And if that's true, and I'm convinced that it is, I want you to just take a step back. You know, it's hard for the fish to consider what water looks like because it lives in water. I want you to step out of our culture for just a minute, step out of your life for just a minute, and look at your life, look at your schedule, look at your deadlines, look at your demands, and tell me, is your home a good place to grow love if patience is number one? We live in a culture full of busyness and deadlines and to-dos and stress. And then we wonder why we don't do patience well. And then we wonder why relationships struggle if that's number one. Why in the world would we expect something different? I mean, to get to this, you may have to make drastic changes somewhere else to even make patience a reality in your home. I love some of the definitions for this word makrothumeo. The first one says refusing to retaliate with anger. I love that idea of refusing. Like you're pushing back. There's a natural urge to retaliate with anger, and you're refusing. You're pushing back. The action is not to do something, it's to not do something. I'm not going to react with anger. A patient man or a patient woman refuses to retaliate with anger. Another definition is showing divinely directed patience. This is not just biting your tongue or doing something on your own. God's got to be involved in this. So you got to have a lot of prayer for God's wisdom and God's guidance and God's direction and God's patience to help you handle this right. My favorite is the opposite of quick-tempered. It's like the Bible's saying, what's a quick-tempered person look like? Okay, the opposite of that. That's not what you're looking for at all. Just the exact opposite of that. Now, let me step on toes for just a minute. I'm going to start with me because I do this, what I'm going to say. Where are you most likely to be quick-tempered? Is it with those that you love and are close to and often live with, or those that you barely know? Love is patient. Love is also kind. The word kind is the word Christoumai. Christoumai means full of service to others or well-fitted. That phrase, well-fitted, grabbed my attention. That jumped out at me because I thought back to the beginning. And by the way, if I'm going to mess something up, if I'm going to say something that's going to be hard to understand and not say it well, it's right here. So just stick with me because I'm going to try to do this well. Genesis chapter 2, verse 18, God says it's not good for the man to be alone. He had created Adam and Eve wasn't there yet, so he created Eve to match it. He said, I will make a helper, Eve, suitable for him. Suitable means well-fitted. It means you fill an empty spot. So God designed things to cure our aloneness by us demonstrating kindness to each other. That was an aha moment for me. Like this, I was in my office and, this mind blow. Do you see that? Kindness means well-fitted. And in the beginning, God said, I'm going to make a well-fitted person to end loneliness for you. Kindness is such a profound part of our life. Kindness covers aloneness, which is so critical because we cover aloneness with lots of things in our culture today. Oftentimes those things are addictive. Sometimes those things are sinful. Often those things are painful and destructive. And we cover our aloneness with those things because maybe the kindness has not been there to start with. I saw this quote. It's pretty harsh. I apologize for that, but I thought it was accurate. Mark Fairley says, it's likely that you and I never set out to have a stunted relationship due to pornography addiction, or to neglect your kids so much by sitting on social media all evening, or to have 3 children by 3 different guys, or to rack up credit card debt, or to become overweight, or become addicted to alcohol. But what is very likely is that you did set out believing that there was something in food, sex, money, distraction, alcohol, etc., that could give you some type of relief. Is it possible that our kindness is the salve that other people need and crave the most? Like, is it possible that when I'm kind to somebody in my life, I'm unlocking something so deep in their soul that I didn't even know was there, but I'm doing it through my kindness, and I'm covering somehow their aloneness, that I'm being well fitted for the one in my life? I think that's probably true. Let me talk to those of you who are single, dating and such for just a minute. Because I think we do this, I think we do dating so bizarre in America. I think we look for all the wrong things in dates. So let me just say that. Patience and kindness don't inspire romantic overtures. Like if you have somebody say, man, you should date my cousin. She is so kind. That is not enthusiastic, right? If your friend at work says, you should date this guy, I mean, he is so patient. You don't go, oh man, pitter patter. Like you're not wooed by that. And yet I would suggest to you that patience and kindness are so integral to making a relationship work. They should be much higher on the Match.com algorithm or however that works than what they probably are. Love is patient and it's kind. I thought this was fascinating this week. I was looking in the Roman world during the time of the first century, and the Bible is written, Crestus was a common slave name of the time. So this is the background of that. What would happen is when someone would acquire a new slave, they would rename often the slave. And one of the most common names they used was Crestus. And in fact, what a lot of them would do is they would name each of their slaves Crestus, so that if any of the slaves are around, I don't even have to know who you are, Crestus, get over here, and Crestus would come, because they're all named Crestus. Crestus in Greek means useful, so demeaning. It's like, hey, useful, come over here and grab my groceries. Or, hey, useful, go get my dry cleaning. Or, hey, useful, come shine my shoes. It's terrible, so demeaning. But I don't want you to miss this. Kindness is the word Christos. And God would have understood the parallels, the connections, the similarities to the slave name Christos, useful. God would have understood that when 1 Corinthians was written. Now, I'm not saying you should be a doormat. If you feel like maybe you're on a doormat or on the verge of being a doormat, get some outside counsel. It's hard to see that in yourself. There's all kinds of weird things we do in relationships. So get some outside people to say, am I being a doormat here? Get some Christian counselors, etc. I'd love to help with that. But I am saying that God was fully aware of what he was doing when he wrote these words that says love is Christos. It's kind. God is intentionally painting a picture of us lowering ourselves to be well-fitted, useful, helpful to those in our life through our kindness. This is central to the relationships. This is central to the gospel. Luke chapter 6, verse 35, you'll see the word Christos there as well. It says, love your enemies, do good to them, lend to them without expecting to get anything back. Then your reward will be great, and you will be children of the Most High, because God is Christos to the ungrateful and the wicked. Be merciful as your Father is merciful. I love that last little line, because that takes away all of my excuses. Why am I not kind? Why are we not kind? Well, they're not nice to me. They don't appreciate it when I'm kind. God is kind to the ungrateful. Or maybe they're mean to me. Why am I kind to them when they're mean to me? God is also kind to the wicked. Be like your Father in heaven, who is kind, Christos, useful, well-fitted, even to the ungrateful, and even to the wicked. Kindness is integral to our faith. Romans chapter 2, verse 4. God's kindness is intended to lead us to repentance. You want to see change in your home? Change with your kids? Change in your marriage? Nagging may not be as effective. Intimidation may not be as effective as kindness is. Love is patient. Love is kind. Love does not envy. It's the word zelao. Now, zelao is an onomatopoeia. Remember onomatopoeia from English class? You may not. Let me just remind you. Onomatopoeia is when a word sounds like what it describes. So like splash is an onomatopoeia. It sounds like a splash. Or mumble is an onomatopoeia. It sounds like someone mumbles, right? It does. So the Greeks said that zelao was an onomatopoeia. Now, I tried in my office to make it sound like this. I don't get it. But they said it sounds like boiling water that's bubbling over. I thought, what a picture that is. The Greeks said that envy sounds like boiling water bubbling over. Powerful. Comparison builds in us. A little bit here, a little bit here. We don't notice it at first. It kind of builds up. It heats up. And over time, it heats up enough to boil up and boil over into envy and jealousy. And it's ugly. We do that with our jobs. I mean, your job's a relationship, right? A relationship with your employer. And you compare what he or she is providing you versus what another employer provides, or what they're not doing, the work environment versus another person's work environment. And pretty soon this job that you really liked, you don't even like anymore because of your comparison to somebody else that now is boiling up and over. We do that with our kids. We compare our kids' weaknesses to other kids' strengths, or expectations we have of them that maybe they're not well suited to match. We definitely do that with spouses. It boils and boils until one day they become completely unacceptable in our eyes. This is the person you chose. No one forced you into this. We don't have arranged marriages today. You chose this person. You said, I want to be with you for the rest, but you've allowed envy and comparison and envy, jealousy to boil up, and now they're completely unacceptable to you. It's like bubbling over. But love does not envy. Proverbs 14:30 says, peace gives life to the body, but envy rots the bones. It rots the bones. Another translation says it's like cancer in your bones. What a picture. Because I've seen that. You've seen that. Couples, good people who love each other, but over time, a little bit here, boiling up, boiling over, the infrastructure of their relationship goes away, it rots. What their husband's not, what their wife doesn't do, how their weaknesses compare to somebody else's weaknesses. Why don't we do like they do on Facebook or whatever? And Proverbs teaches us it rots the infrastructure of our homes. We've all seen it. Some of you are living in it now. James chapter 3 says, who's wise and understanding among you? Let them show it. Let them show they have godly wisdom by their good life, by deeds done in the humility that comes from wisdom. Now, I want to make sure you understand the context of this passage. We're going to look more the context. So the first part of James chapter 3 talks about taming our tongue, the words we say and how that damages relationships and people. And then the first part of chapter 4 talks about what causes fights among us. Why do we have fights? And right here in the middle, the last part of James 3 is where we're going to look at. So control your tongue. Here's why you fight. And right here's in the middle. It's talking about godly wisdom, how God guides our life versus how we do it. Okay? So look at verse 14. Verse 14 says, if you harbor bitter envy and selfish ambition in your hearts, do not boast about it or deny the truth. For such wisdom, quote unquote, does not come down from heaven, but is earthly, unspiritual, and demonic. This verse really threw me off. I didn't resonate with it. I mean, who brags about sin? He's talking to the church. Who goes around the church saying, I sinned today, yay. Like, it didn't make sense to me. And specifically, he's talking about bitter envy and selfishness. Who brags about that? I have bitter envy, yay. No one does that. It didn't make sense to me. And then it clicked. We do that. When we've allowed envy and jealousy and discontentment to rot away the infrastructure of our home, the value we see in that other person, we feel the need to tell somebody else, to commiserate with them. You have no idea what it's like to live with her. You have no idea how ugly he is when no one else is around. You have no idea what it's like to be with them. We do that. And sometimes we don't know. Sometimes it is really terrible. Sometimes it's really hard. Get some help. We want to help. Come talk to us. We'd love to help. But I want you to ask the question, why do I feel the need to boast about my envy? That's how James would say it. Why do I feel the need to boast about it? Because James says it's not a good idea. In fact, it's earthly, unspiritual, and he goes so far as to say it's demonic. That's the motivation for this. It's not coming from a good place. Verse 16 continues. It says, for where you have envy and selfish ambition, there you find disorder and every evil practice. Can I just say, this is not the road you want to be on? Like sometimes you plot out in a life, I'm going to try to do this, and it's going to lead to that. This is where you're leading if you're allowing that to rot out the structure of your home. This is not the path you want to be on. This is not good for your satisfaction. This is not good for your peace. It's not good for your children. This is not the path you want to be on. So what's a better option? I'm so glad you asked. James is really glad you asked because he answers it in verse 17. But the wisdom that comes from God in heaven, and then he describes it. It's first of all pure, then peace-loving, considerate, submissive, full of mercy and good fruit, impartial, sincere. Peacemakers who sow in peace reap a harvest of righteousness. Hold that there a second. I want to work through this. Look at those things together. How much of this is describing a unified relationship? How much of this is describing a home that you want to live in? God's way, heavenly wisdom, is first of all pure. Then it's peace-loving. Somebody who loves peace, who strives for peace, who sacrifices for peace. It's considerate of the needs of others. It's submissive, someone who submits their wants and their wishes and their preferences for the sake of another, for the sake of the relationship. It's full of mercy and good fruit. Now, if we can be honest, a lot of us go around in relationships full of anger, full of resentment, full of unforgiveness, full of rage right up to the point. James says, no, you're full of mercy. God's way is full of mercy. It's impartial and sincere. Peacemakers who sow in peace will reap a harvest of righteousness. There God goes giving the picture again. Sow the seed, you reap the harvest. You sow the seed, you reap the harvest. This is the path you want to be on. This is so much better than the every evil practice and disorder. That's not what you want to live. I love the Message translation of the same verse. It says, real wisdom, God's wisdom, begins with a holy life and is characterized by getting along with others. It's gentle and reasonable, overflowing with mercy and blessings. Just like envy boils up and boils over, mercy and blessings in the right context. Mercy and blessings boil up and boil over into those around us. How do you get there? Well, this passage says you're gentle and reasonable, you're overflowing with mercy and blessings. I think it's parallel to saying, be kind, be patient, be kind, don't envy. You know, the message is titled An Outrageous Claim because I want to put it to the test. I want you and I to put it to the test. Try it out. If you want to grow love in your home, if you want to grow love with people that you work with, if you want to grow love with your children, if you want to grow love in your neighbor, whatever the context, if you want that, plant some patience every day. Plant some kindness every day. Be well fitted for those in your life and do something kind. Eliminate some envy from your life. And you may not see growth this afternoon. You may not see everything turn around next week. But if you do that, patience, kindness, envy, patience, kindness, envy, over time you're going to see something growing that's healthy and alive and worth harvesting. Now in the back, on the way out, you'll notice by the outside door there's some seeds. You can't plant them. It's just bird seed, so you can't plant them. But I bought like 50 pounds, so grab a big handful. There's plenty. We'll put more in that bowl. There's plenty there. We put it by the outside door so you wouldn't make a mess all over the church, and we have to clean it up later. Somebody's giving me a hard time at the first service saying, that's going to end up in the washing machine. You know people aren't going to take that out of their pocket. That's all up to you. I don't know. Be patient with each other in that. But I want you to grab a handful of these if this would help. Put them on your sink. Put them on your desk at work. Keep them in your pocket as a reminder of what you're trying to do. You're sowing some patience. You're sowing some kindness. You're eliminating some weeds of envy. My outrageous claim is that this will work. 100% of relationships will get better, and a lot of them will get fixed with this. And I say my outrageous claim, that's a lie. It's God's outrageous claim. This is all from His words. If you want to grow love in your relationship, plant some patience, plant some kindness, pull some weeds of envy out of your home. And it'll help. And your kids will benefit. And your neighbors will notice. And I want that for you. Let's pray. God, I want to say thank you that you accept us in the most vulnerable of our moments. You don't just love us when our act is all together and everything's pretty. You're so patient with us, and you're so kind to us. And you don't compare us to everybody else. You don't say, I wish Andy was a little more like that guy or that woman. You love us right where you are, right where we are. Accept us. God, I pray that you'd help us to love like that. Some of us, God, right now don't feel any love for the people that we're thinking of in our head. Maybe a child, maybe a coworker, maybe a parent, maybe a spouse. And we don't feel love. We feel like that dry seed that gets stuck in the ground, that's hardened and got a coat on it to keep it protected from the inner stuff. And it feels lifeless and cold and dead. And yet you designed creation itself to scream to us that life's in there. Life is in there. When we plant it, when we put it in your hands, we die to ourselves. There's life in there. And God, I pray that you would strip my cynicism away. Strip our cynicism away. Not to trust me, for goodness sake, but to trust you, that your way is best, and that you have something for us, and that you can bring life to what is dead, and you can bring healing to what is sick, and you can bring wholeness to what seems broken. You can do that, God. So we put our life in your hands. We trust you. Give us the patience that we don't have. Give us the kindness we don't have. Give us the ability to weed out the envy in our home and our heart. Church, I want you to pray to God, just right where you sit, your own words. You may not even have words. If you don't have words, just sit in silence before God who loves you. And ask him to speak into your heart and life. God, we don't look to our example. That just causes pain and resentment and discouragement. We don't look to the example of others. That just makes us jealous. We look to you, the one who loved us completely, the one who loved us without envy, the one who gave us such kindness. And we ask, God, that you would help us to love others as you have loved us. We pray in Jesus' name.